Welcome back, subscribers. I'm going to do this quick recording, and this is going to be a weird one, but it's going to end up coming into everybody's space, which is going to be the alien element. And it's funny that the history of this, like I grew up as a Star Wars kid. I just absolutely loved it. I had all the toys, the ships, everything. Uh, I was really really heavy into Star Wars, and I love the message behind it. I loved particularly, like, probably my favorite character from the series would have been like Yoda, and the philosophies, like, is a Taoist philosophy of in Star Wars, which is very very strong element. But I always, at a young age, I mean, I would have been probably, I remember seeing the first one in theater. I was probably 4 when I saw it in the theater. And Empire Strikes Back, I would have been like 6, maybe something like that, 5, 6 years old, um, somewhere in that range. So, like, I understood what he was saying. I understood the manipulation of the perception of the way things are, they look, and the way they really are, the way it works, how you change things, and so the alien element. So I think that basically softened us into the environment that it's okay for people to be different. They look different. They all have like different types of contributions and different skill sets and things like that. And this guy looks like he's you know an insect, or whatever the character was in the movies, in Star Wars movies. And I think it basically it created a more homogenous probability of alien uh confluence with man, to be like cohabitating and being able to do business together, and day-to-day stuff. And it just seems like not that big of a deal, so as more information keeps coming out about it, and it being in Washington, and there's a high probability that Trump is going to do like a formalized disclosure, and we think it's probably going to be, oh man, probably, I think there's a date that came up that was like an esoteric date, because it's going to be like a pretty major historical data point or node point in human history, like major, because it's like it's pretty well known about this stuff, but to be able to have it come through an authority, that's what's going to end up being stamped in human history moving forward, is going to be the declaration. The declaration moment is the most important moment. But people talking about being abducted for the past, 50 years or whatever, 60, what, it's been going on forever, just so people know. That's where really the transformation of humanity is, and then you'll be able to kind of like mark it on a timeline, which is again like how humans kind of work anyway. They're very linear, and they need to have some sort of like definitive, authoritative proof that something is actually happening. I don't know. They like then it becomes socially accepted. Like, we can talk about this. Yeah, it's real. So, um, preparing for it mentally, and also business wise, there's going to absolutely be a business impact on this for sure. It's already happening. We cover this because of the stuff we do internally on our site on Reservoir, um, and we're keeping it human. That's the whole thing. Like, this is all brainchilded by Franklin and I. And I was like, well, we know what's going to be happening in the future, and how we know that, like, you can hear our conversations, and you can kind of glean a little bit of what our backgrounds are. And um, so as the further this moves along, it's more of mental preparation for some things that are going to basically be crushed because of it. Because if there's information that comes out, that will be, they've been holding it back because it's damaging to existing belief systems. I don't mean just religions, but administrative belief systems. I pointed out the fact, like, it's funny how people just call it alien. There's so much alien energy that's on the planet right now, especially in the U.S., where we got in Europe too, but they're using illegal aliens, meaning that they're not able to, they've crossed borders illegally, and they're now residing in a new space. All right. So that would be the micro, and the macro would be like global, and that these are non-terrestrial beings that are alien to Earth. They're non-Earthlings. All right. But they've used the term, which is so telling. And I think this is where you're going to get a lot of this a slow realization of the placement of humans on the planet, is that the term that's used is alien or alien, in business is alien. And it identifies ownership, that they are not necessarily like they own you like a slave. I think that that's a misconception. It's that they have interest. Okay. Again, it goes back to business and interest. So if you go to the bank and you get a loan, and the loan the bank makes, they have interest. You get let's say you get a car payment, all right, and you go and you get a loan, and now the bank has a lien against the car because the bank technically owns it and is giving you a loan against it. So the bank has interest in that automobile. All right. And humans, there's when they come to find out the realization, that's why I'm doing this video basically to timestamp it, to identify like that there is interest in us, all right, in the evolution from its spiritual to biological to all, you name it, psychological, every one of our known sciences and then some, that these off-planet beings have interest in us because they've got vested interest in us. So they are the ones that are the lien holders of the space, basically the entire planet. And I don't know if like there's many stories and folklore about this of like who actually has dominion, rulership over the place, but they'll spin it in whatever way that they want, that sees fit to steer the populations. But ultimately, like if it's somebody that's had, some kind of a weird experience or something like that, that that it's not what you've been taught, that there's elements that are outside of it that are supernatural, that they're not domestic to Earth. Like you can't, and then you can't even explain it to another person, maybe what happened. You can't go talk to your priest or your rabbi or something about it, because it comes across like that they are the one-stop shop for anything that's supernatural goes through the church. Now we have a governmental element that comes into play where they didn't want any of that business to come in, because they don't really want you to know they don't control anything. They control administration over you, but they're under administration from another order that is above them. And they don't really, when you have individuals that are in a power environment, they don't ever want you to think that or know that. They want to keep that off the table. So I could definitely relate to why that's happened, and the confusion and things like that, because they're not all good and they're not all bad. They view it as like from the nefarious side, where they can come in and cattle mutilate or abduct humans and take them off planet and do whatever they want to them, to like kind of like Epstein vibe, to like benevolence, where they want to try to help out and get humanity into a more enlightened environment, maybe from a spiritual perspective or things like that. So you name it, it's going to come out, and you're going to see, I think, a lot of people kind of like gravitating towards it, because once it's declared, the energy will shift into that space where it is now socially accepted, which is really a major thing. Because as I have seen in my years of I don't know, being interested in it, and I got at a very young age, was interested in it because of my neighbor, who was he was a side astronomer. Like he did it like he was an orthodontist, and he had an actual observatory on his house, on his property. And I've got some information on that, like in our private site. I tell the story. That's a private story. But I'm not just talking like a tiny little telescope like this. It was like the real deal. So I've always been around it, space, final frontier type of thing. So I've always been like pretty well open to it, and then had my own personal experiences, not ones that I was like awestruck and just like bend a knee to it. It's just I have a more broader understanding of it, where it's a lot more even keeled than somebody that becomes. There's typically like these abductees. I've never been abducted, but I've had other experiences. Like I wasn't actually taken, but confrontations and things like that. And like, not confrontations, not really the right word. Um, Things were identified to me, visitations, things like that. And But I usually really don't talk about them because it's just kind of like, well, I don't really have any way to prove it. And but the information that was told to me was really pretty profound and good. Not the point where I'd be like worshiping any of it, or it's just kind of like giving me an idea of like what's to come, like how things are going to be like, transpiring on Earth moving forward. And I was not even told a timeline or anything like that, but it just got me hunting more on seeing it, because I'm a business owner, and seeing it for 30 years. I was like, well, if this is the case, then I would bet that there are elements that are already setting up kind of in the in the back channels that are leaving space for this new environment to come in. This kind of like space aged contact environment, and how they decide to roll it out, is I have no idea. I think probably it will be that they're going to try to like capitalize on it, which again is that control everybody, like that they're all bad or they're all one unit or whatever else. And I'll tell you, like that's absolutely not the case. That it's basically it's kind of like a wide open network, from what I understand, and that there's kind of a ruling authority, kind of like over the whole thing, but inside of it there are rules and contracts basically are that some abide by and some that don't. So like that's kind of where you get the angels and demons elements, like where you've got kind of like a light and dark, but at the end of the day, the the sides that are the ruling force doesn't really view any of it as being good or bad. That's a hard one for humans to kind of wrap their head around, is that no matter what is done here, that it's all it's like Vegas, like whatever happens here on the planet is all acceptable. It's that the humans that are experiencing it, um, in some weird way, they want to experience it, because it causes them, it like stirs them up, it gets them interested in other things, and they're just expanding. It'll be a very interesting path moving forward. But yeah, you're gonna have to save some space for it, because I guess you could try to block it out as much as you want to, but it's gonna just take fire like crazy. And they've been soft disclosing it to us through movies and TV for, decades and decades. And I think preparing humanity for that fact. And it'll be like the disintegrations of, many people in their belief systems. The religions are going to have a hard time, but I think there's going to be kind of a resurgence of where the truth will actually come out about the religions. And not to take away from the teachings and things that were depending upon, like, whatever you follow, that there'll be more of a pure uh, perspective on those teachings, which hold a much a higher divinical, like, perception of what was being said. It gives a little bit more context, whereas they've turned it into a more nuts and bolts literal element, and that's the only way that man could basically commandeer it and then capitalize on it, is that they had to make it real instead of energetic. Whereas it's actually the opposite. Everything starts from energetic and then permeates down into real. But you can manipulate that by not telling the whole story, right? You to tell somebody like half a truth and then they go off in their merry way, and 30 years later they're like, but you told me that it was supposed to, like that's what happens in relationships in general and in life in general, is that if somebody doesn't know the whole story, or their interpretation of the story is slightly skewed, a little out of polarity, it causes them to go off on a tangent, and they end up you know doing their own thing. And but it gets them through the day. That's the whole thing. It's like they believe in it and they're wholeheartedly, and then that's it. It has the same kind of relative energy as like kind of cult energy. It's kind of got some Jim Jones energy to it. Like Jonestown. It all that would be like an extreme version of it. But as think of it as a spectrum, that you're going to have blind followers, and then it kind of wanes away, and people taking like bits and pieces away from specific belief systems that fits their needs the day to day. And that's ultimately, I think, where we're at currently. But now you're going to have more and more of that, because they're opening up like another dimension of possibility, which is even, it's going to increase the divinity level even higher. Okay, that's from the way we see it moving forward, and it's going to be highly disruptive. It'll be highly disruptive for um, personal beliefs, business, the way commerce works, goals and things that were initially installed as uh, things that are benchmarks of the environment that you're in, are going to be challenged. And the new commerce system that's rolling in through blockchain enables this open policy, if you will, with not only it's interesting. The more that we've looked into it, I'm like, well, it actually would allow for uh it's already set up to allow for cross-border contracting, to allow it to happen, cross-border business to happen, as long as they're identified with whatever origin that they're from. So, for example, I could use, uh, I can do business with somebody. Let's say I'm in the blockchain, and we're going to do a smart contract, a contract with digital crypto, and I do business with somebody. I put an open contract out, and as long as somebody has been KYC'd and they're identified in the digital system, they can enter that contract. I don't care what religion they are. I don't care what language they speak. It's wide open. And now you can even like ramp it up to the next level and be like, it doesn't matter what planet they're from. It doesn't matter what star system they're from. You could do business. Imagine being able to buy property in, like, I don't know, the Sirius star system. Be like, well, we have a moon in Sirius, and you could buy. They already do this. You can buy like stars, and you can buy right. I don't know, portions of the moon or things like that you can buy these territories. Now, if you actually had plugged into a more universe system, or galaxy system, where you could contribute and invest. I mean, how cool would that be to invest in say like a new colonized space that's in the Andromedan galaxy or something like that, and you could go invest in it, but have a way to be able to like see what's actually going on there, even though it's probably, I don't know, it could be fake, whatever. But if it's real, it would be really kind of interesting, right? Kind of like you're like, oh yeah, I've got a condo in yeah, in Aldebaran, and yeah, we don't get to visit there, but we've invested in it, and it's the economics in Aldebaran are like this. It's like kind of interesting, right? But anyway, that's like way off down the road. But I could definitely see how that would be something that would be uh, very interesting, because it's like everything is all about contracts and interest. It seems like the more you get into it, whether it's like from a spiritual side, a business side, yeah, interest in getting everybody to be interested in something, so they get up every day and they keep reading and learning and being involved in things. Because the more humans are involved, the more they stir, um, the more energy is created by the humans, and that's a whole nother story. We won't get into that. It's like some Bob Monroe stuff. Um, but yeah, that's so yeah, save some space for the alien factor. It's going to be it'll be interesting to see how they roll it out. So it'll probably be like a mainstream version, and then the way that others that have been through that are connected, that know what's going on. Not as a wholehearted element, but it's fractionalized. It's very similar to blockchain. So there's so many that can come into this space that are not domestically from here, from Earth, that can influence anything and everything that they want inside of this space. It's nuts. And it's not all demonic. It's both sides. All right. So Anyway, and you have to be able to figure out which is which, and that's where again it comes down to your own personal constitution and your own internal knowings instead of following along and believing somebody. Is that whenever you if you're if you're being contacted by someone or something, whether it's terrestrial or non, how do you trust it, right? Just because somebody can, whatever, walk on water or whatever, turn wine into or water into wine, whatever it is, whatever the thing could be that is so awe striking that be like, well, just because you can do that, what else do you know? Like, what else can you identify to me that because there's you and then there could be 10,000 others that are just like you that can do exactly the same thing. Why would I follow that? And I think that that's one of the environments that we're kind of like going into. But there, I said, there's going to be a lot of people that are just going to completely cast it out because they're going to continue to keep following the church doctrine. But a lot of people don't know that ultimately the church is allowing this to happen. They've been controlling behind the scenes. They've been controlling this the whole time because they've known about the rulership because they're the ones that have been running the whole planet the whole time. So when you get somebody that's inside of that space, if they were truly ruling at 100%, then why would they let any of the truth come out? Because they have to, right? So anyway, there'll be more to come, and I'm not going to do like lots of alien stuff. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I just want to kind of get this out there to get it timestamped that we know about it, and it's going to absolutely affect everything that is on this planet and always has. So anyway, cheers.